Hi, welcome to Coding Bootcamp's YouTube channel. Subscribe now and join our live stream session later. See you.
Hey, welcome back guys to Intermediate JavaScript and jQuery programming with JSON on Ajax. My name is Kaustubh Gargi, but you can call me KG. I will be working on our first project for this Intermediate JavaScript course today. Before we begin, let's look at the session outline. So in this session, we'll be first covering the recap of the previous sessions and what we have done thus far. Afterwards, we will work on our first project for which we will be setting up an image gallery using HTML and learning the various events which we can capture using jQuery to make changes to our image gallery. If you do not have fundamentals of JavaScript programming clear, you must take the Introduction to JavaScript course as well as HTML to understand the document object model. So thus far we have covered fundamentals of jQuery programming. We learned how we can add jQuery to our projects and how we can use the same functionalities that JavaScript provides us, but with a clean and easy code to follow. Plus, jQuery allows us to add animations and other effects to our web page, adding a bit of interactivity to the web page, thus enhancing the user experience. In this project, we're going to create a simple image gallery using HTML5, which changes the active picture in the gallery when the user moves their mouse cursor on the button. You must have seen this especially for tourism-related websites, more specifically for hotels, where they want you to showcase the details of the package and what the tourists can expect when they stay at the hotel. So that's one of the use cases. One of the other use cases you can do is you can just create a picture gallery for yourself, for your own personal pictures. Alright, so moving on. Again, as a reminder, if you have not installed Visual Studio Code or any other code editor plus a web browser, you must do it. I'm currently using Google Chrome as my web browser and Visual Studio Code as my code editor. You can find the project files on my GitHub. The links we'll be using for this project are directly added through the hyperlinks. If you want, you can have a directory and store all your images instead of using links, and provide the relative path to the source attribute of the image tag. Alright, so let's move over to Visual Studio Code Editor and begin coding directly. We'll get back to the slides once we're done. Alright, so I have some pre-written HTML code in order to save some time. We simply have a main div right here with a class of container, and which has a subdiv holding all the buttons, and we have an image tag. Okay, notice here we have only a single image tag which will load all of our images. I've added the 5 buttons here. These can be divs, paragraphs, tags, or any element which supports the mouse over event. The idea is when the user hovers over the load image button, so when the user hovers over the load image button, the relevant image will be loaded. Okay, so let's write some jQuery for here real quick. Let me add a script tag. All right, so what we need to do, we need to first get access to this particular image element here. So we have an ID. So what we want to do is first we want to make sure that the HTML has been loaded. So do you remember what function we use to make sure all of the HTML elements have been loaded? So it's the document.ready. Okay, so we have jQuery, pass in the document, it checks if the document is ready, and within it we pass in a function. Alright, so I'm just gonna check for all of the images. So we have 4 images right now with specific classes. So I'm going to select these classes. So do you remember what is how you can select classes? Right. So in the basic JavaScript, we had uh, get element by class name. In jQuery, we just have to add in a period and the class name. So the first class is image1, right? And we're going to use the on method, in which we'll be listening for mouse over. Okay, so once we listen to the mouse over, we're going to run a function, and in which what we are going to do is we're going to change the attribute for this image tag. So the attribute source, we're going to change this. Okay, so right now we have a basic image that I've loaded here. So let's first quickly see what this image looks like. Let me open this up with the live server. Right, so this is the basic image that we have loaded. Right now we don't have any jQuery, so we are not loading any other images. So let's quickly go back and change the attribute on the mouse over event. Okay, so I have to select the change image, right? So the way we do it is we use jQuery and the pound symbol and change image. That's the ID. And I'm going to access the attribute for this by using attribute, and in which here the attribute function takes in two parameters. One is the actual attribute and one is the value. So you can either get or set. In this case we are setting it up, so just setting the source attribute, and in here I am just going to add a URL real quick. So let me find some URL. So I usually use Unsplash .com's images. They're free, and also they're free to use, as in the license is free. So I just use these images. I like these images. So what I will say is let's say trees, and let me open this up in a new tab and just copy over this link right here. Right, so just paste it. Now the image size is too big, so I'm just going to change it to the width to 900 pixels. Save it, and let's see if this works first. And go back, reload the page, and if I hover over the load image 2, it loads. Load 3 and load 4 won't work because we haven't written code for it. Okay, so let's quickly add for the rest of the images, so the rest of the buttons. So let's do that real quick. So I'm just going to copy paste over this code 4 times and just change the URL. Alright, so in here I'm going to do image 2, image 3, and image 4, and I'm just going to add in some new URLs. Okay, so I've added the trees already. Let me close this. Let me find a new image real quick. Let me add flowers. All right. So I'm just going to get this image right here, go back, and add a new URL. Change the width to 900 because it's too big for my screen size. Alright, close this as well. Let's add moss. Alright, go back, change one for the image 3, save it, change this to 900 again. I have image 1, I have image 2, I have image 3, image 4. This is extra. Okay, I'm just going to remove this. Make some space here. I need to add one more image for image 4. Let's say fruits on trees. All right. Let me quickly change this. So what you can do is you can use your own private gallery as well. If you have images, you can use those as well instead of adding the links. Save this. Right, so I've covered for image 4, image 3, and image 2. Let me save this and go back and see how this looks. Let me reload this. So I have image 1, image 2, image 3, and image 4. Perfect. So if you notice, whenever I hover over, the images change. Perfect. That's what we wanted. Let's go back to the slides. Alright, so we covered one of the approaches to build a image swap feature for the image gallery. Now this is not the only way we can build an image gallery. You can further add your own enhancements to this, and I encourage you to build them over this application. The purpose of this project was to get you started. Now you can build your own enhancements on top of it. An example would be instead of hovering over the 4 buttons, so we have used the mouse over, you can use the dot hover function as well. Instead of hovering over the 4 buttons, just have one button and make sure you can activate image changes on each mouse over event. Okay. The trick is to have image links in an array. So what we have in here, if you go back to the code, so we are adding the images one at a time. So instead of doing that, what you can do is you can have all the image links in an array and loop over the array one image at a time on the mouse over event. In the next level of enhancement, you can use mouse over event on the image itself. So when the user hovers over the cursor over the active image, so instead of having mouse over on the button, all you can do is you can just have a mouse over on the image itself and it will load the next image in the array. Or you can have a timer function. You learned in JavaScript course timer functions such as set interval to change the active image one at a time. So you can have yourself a screensaver. You can also use some jQuery plugins for which I have added links in the resources section for the slides. So you can use jQuery plugins, and you can also use jQuery UI to build a more advanced image gallery. Alright, so that's it with the project 1. I will see you in the next session for project 2. Take care. Bye. Hey, welcome back guys to Intermediate JavaScript and jQuery programming with JSON and Ajax. My name is Kaustubh Gharge, but you can call me KG. We will be working on our second project for this Intermediate JavaScript course today. Before we begin, let's look at the session outline. So in this session, we will first review our previous project, then start working on a new project where we will build a login form. We will learn how to get the user inputted data and use Ajax to send this data to an API service and authenticate the user. Moving on. Again, as a reminder, if you have not taken Fundamentals to JavaScript Programming before, then you must take the Introduction to JavaScript course, as well as HTML to understand the document object model. So in the previous project, we actually worked on manipulating the
Thanks for watching. Feel free to add your questions as comments down below.
DOM, we built a simple image swap gallery where we use the jQuery functions to figure out the mouse events and change the active image within the gallery. Okay, so we worked on manipulating the DOM, but in this project we'll be working on something a bit advanced. We'll be working on Ajax calls. So in this project we'll be covering the most common functionality on the web today, that is the user authentication. You've seen this functionality for various sites and applications that you use. There are various ways in which a user can be authenticated. However, we're going to cover the most traditional way of using an email and a password. But however, I strongly encourage you, after you're done with this and you're confident enough that you can handle the user authentication using email and password, you should look into the two-factor authentication when you can use some third-party authentication libraries. But moving on, again, as a reminder, make sure you have the Google Chrome browser and code editor like Visual Studio Code installed on your computer. The project source code files are available on my GitHub page. You can download them and review the code if you get stuck at any point during the session. So now we have everything in order. Let's begin. So let's begin by creating a simple form with 2 input boxes and a button. I'm going to be using Bootstrap to make them look better. So I have the basic boilerplate code ready so that we can quickly jump into the jQuery side and figure out how we can provide the user authentication data to the backend server. Alright, so what I have now with me here is a basic boilerplate code. I have included jQuery as well as Bootstrap, and I've also included my main.js file in which we'll be writing most of our code. Okay, so let's quickly review this HTML body. So I have a simple form element in which we have email address and password, and a button to submit the email and the password to the backend. And I also have a div where I will show the message for the user if the login information is correct or incorrect. So let's quickly run this and see how this looks. So this is how the form actually looks. And if I go to the inspect element, I don't think I have any JavaScript written right now, so let's avoid that for now. But I just have a simple form with 2 fields and a button. Let's go back and write some jQuery. Alright, so now first thing is obviously we have to make sure that the document is ready. So I'll say document.ready and pass in a function. Alright, so now the first thing is we have to listen to the onSubmit event for the form. So if you go back to the index.html, we already have a form, and first thing we have to do is listen to the submit event. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an ID of the form. So it's login form. Oops. Alright, and I'm going to listen for the submit event, and I'm going to get the information from the form. Okay, so if I save this and if I go back, I need the information from the input email. Let me close this. Email as well as the password. So I'll be using the ID to get the data from them. Alright, so, and I'll store them in a variable. So let me create a variable first. I'll say username, and I will use the jQuery user email dot value, and I'm going to use the trim function. So the trim function actually removes any white space before or after the characters. Okay, I'll create the same one for the password, and I'm just going to reuse this and change this to password. Alright, perfect. Now we're going to use the Ajax function, but before we do that, we have to make sure that we have the server running. So in this case, for this particular project, I have quickly built a server right here that is available on my GitHub page. So let me quickly open this up, and in here I'm going to just running this particular command. It says npm run, not npm run or npm start, and it's going to start my server. That's all you have to do. If you want, you can take a look at the code. It's simple Node.js server that's running, and we're only looking to see if the email is of test at testdata.com, as well as its password is password. Okay, so make sure you have the server running. Going back to the jQuery, now in here, the first thing we are going to check if the user email and password are not blank, right? So I'm going to use an if statement, and I'm going to say if the username not equal to blank and password not equal to blank. Right, so if this is true, then I'm going to run the Ajax. Let me quickly close this. I'm going to write the Ajax code. So we'll say jQuery.ajax, and we'll pass in the parameters. Okay, so the URL that we're going to log in is the local host. Okay, so I'm going to say URL. I'm just going to copy the server URL that I have. Oops. Okay, and I'm going to be listening to the login, so I'm just going to say login. Okay, now the type for this Ajax request is, can you guess it? It is post, because we're sending in the data, right? So we are not getting anything. It won't be get, it will be post. It can be get too. You can even send data using the get, but it's best if you send using the post. Okay, so the content type is the form data. So I'm going to say application form URL encoded. So this is the data format that the server requires, so I have provided to it. And in here I'm going to just send the data. So I'm going to say email, and I'm going to use the username. Quickly shorten this. Username and password is password. All right, perfect. Now we're going to see, we're going to have to make sure we add events. We handle the success as well as the failure events. So I'll say success, and I'll call it a function. In here I'll get the response. All right, now let's actually print this response out on the HTML, because since if you look at the HTML code, I have created a special div to show the response from the server. So I'm just going to call this and attach response to this. Okay, so let me quickly go back here and create a blank variable and assign this the response. Okay, and in here I'm going to get the message div and attach it as an HTML. So I'll say HTML message. Oops. All right, And for the error, we'll use the same way. Instead of catching a response, we'll catch an error. And I will just reuse this. And instead of response, I'll say error.response text. All right, perfect. And I have to make sure that the form doesn't jump because of the traditional event property. So I'll just say event dot prevent default. All right, perfect. Let me save this, make sure everything is in order. So we have two variables. I'm getting the data from the user, and I'm just passing that data inside the Ajax function in the data object, and depending on the success or error of the response from the server, I'm going to display it to the user. So let's quickly run this. Say open with live server, and the way the server is configured is it is only going to take test at test.com and password as password. So I'm going to see if these two fields work. All right, so it says user with test at test.com logged in successfully. So we have entered the correct details. So what if we enter the password incorrectly? So let me enter something else. Let me enter 1 2 3 4 5 and submit it. It says wrong password. Okay, so the message is being sent to us by the server, and all of the verification is done by the server and not on the front end. Okay, so that's good. So I'll say password, submit. It says correctly. What happens if we enter the email address wrong? So let's say I entered test2 at test.com. What happens then? It says the user account for test2 at test.com does not exist. So again, the configuration is set in the server. For the purpose of this project, we're only concerned with the Ajax, right? So that's why you can use this server, or you can, if you have an access to a different authentication server, you can use it there. All you have to do is make sure you follow the server's data format. So this is data format that we have for our existing server. It requires the object with the values for email and password, as well as the content type. So make sure you have both of those. Okay, so perfect. So perfect. Now that we are done with the login form, we are done with the project too. So we actually created an HTML form by using simple form element and using a bit of Bootstrap. We used the Ajax call to log into the server. We made sure that we used document.getReady to see if to make sure that the jQuery is actually seeing if the HTML has actually been loaded, and we used the Ajax function and used the request type of post, and we handle the response. So that is it. That's the end of project 2. I will see you in the next project. Thank you. Hey, welcome back guys to Intermediate JavaScript and jQuery programming with JSON and Ajax. My name is Kaustubh Gharge, but can call me KG. We will be working on the final project for this Intermediate JavaScript course today. Before we begin, let's look at the session outline. So in this session, we'll be quickly doing a recap of the previous project. We'll be working on the Ajax call again in this project, but we're also going to learn how to process the data that we receive from the API server and display it on our web page. For this project, we'll be building a dashboard that shows all the active cases for the COVID-19. Again, as a reminder, if you do not have taken Fundamentals of JavaScript Programming course before, then you have to take the Introduction to JavaScript as well as Introduction to HTML to understand the document object model before taking this course.
If you have enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
So in the previous project, we covered two things. We covered how to manipulate the DOM using jQuery and how to use Ajax to make calls to the API server. In this project, we'll work on getting the data from the API server using Ajax call, and then we'll work on this data to make it presentable and displayed in our web page by manipulating the document object model. So we'll be building a COVID tracker using the COVID-19 API.com. The year 2020 will go down in the history books for this global pandemic and the importance of digital infrastructure in this global shutdown. We will be learning how we can build better applications and systems to help other people. The API is built from data made available to us by Johns Hopkins University. The data is vast. However, for the purpose of this project, we're going to be focusing only on the number of cases per country. However, I strongly encourage you to explore the data and build on top of the application to learn more and sharpen your jQuery skills. Like always, make sure you have Google Chrome browser and code editor like Visual Studio Code installed on your computer. The project source code files are provided on my GitHub page. You can download them and review the code if you get stuck at any point during this session. So now we have everything in order. Let's begin. So the first thing we need is the data from the API server. We will call the API resource URI at covid19api.com. So let's quickly jump into that. So this is the resource URL that you have to go to, covid19api.com. And the data that is being provided to us is from Johns Hopkins University. And all you have to do is use this URL to get the data. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the code. So I have a basic template of HTML right here. I've included jQuery and Bootstrap. And what I want to do here is I want to show the cases, the COVID-19 cases on a per country basis. So what I have here is I have a header with the name COVID-19 tracker. I have created a paragraph that says the current active COVID-19 cases by countries, and there's a load button by which we will actually, when you click on the button, we'll actually call the API server and get the data and load it onto the web page. Okay. We also have a table with one column for country and one column for cases, and the table body is something we will manipulate and add the data to it. I've also included my main.js file right at the bottom. So let's quickly jump into the main.js where we will actually start writing the code. All right, so the first thing is, like I said, we have a button. So we'll have to catch the button click event, right? So we have the button. So what we need to do is capture the event. First, we have to make sure the document has been loaded. So we'll say document.ready. Pass in a function in here. So when the document is ready, we're going to be listening for the button click. So I'll be using the button class that I already have. So for this particular thing, for this particular button, I have a class of btn that's directly from the Bootstrap library. So I'll be just calling that. And I will listen to the click event. So I'll say click, and inside we'll pass in a function. All right. Now we have to use the Ajax call here, Ajax method here. So can you figure out what kind of request this will be? Will it be a get or post or put or delete? I guess to write it will be the get request. So we'll say Ajax, and in here we'll pass the parameters. So the type is of get. The content type we need is application JSON, so I'll say content type of application slash JSON and the URL. So the URL is provided to you in the slides, the PowerPoint slides, but I'll just type it in here: api.covid19api.com, and I need all the records, so I'm going to just use summary. So all of the details are actually provided on their website. If you were to go to their website and read the documentation, so this is the documentation that you can explore. So we have all of the information within the summary. So we get a summary of new and total cases per country updated daily. This is the response that we get, right? So if I explore this, so this is one of the kind of response that we get from here. It's an example response, and they have different number of endpoints that you can use, and if you can see here, they have the request type as well. So we have to use the get request type for almost all of the endpoints right here. All right, moving back. Okay, what else do we need now? I think we're done. So we just have to listen for the success event now. So we'll say success. I'll pass in the function, get the data, and in here now what I have to do is I already have a table, right? So I already created a table. The first row is the table header where I have country and cases listed. All I have to do is make sure I add a new table row inside the table body. Okay, so let's compose a table row first. Actually, first log in the data. Let's see what kind of data are we dealing with. Okay, so let me save this and run this. So I'll say open with live server. Alright, so you have the header here, you have a paragraph, and you have the load list button here, and I'm using the table. So right now we are not manipulating the DOM, we are just looking at the console. So let me click load list, and I get the data right here. So let me see what kind of data are we dealing with. So we get an object that says it's global countries, and there's a date. So if we open up the countries, we have about 185 countries. Whoa, that's a lot. Okay, so you have the global statistics here as well. So newly confirmed cases, total number of cases, new deaths, total deaths, total recovered. Yeah, so we're only concerned about the countries for now. So we have about 100. We have more than 100 countries, 186 actually. So we have to display this. Okay, so let's go back to the code. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to save this in a an array, because if you looked at here, the countries that we are getting is an array of 186 records. So first of all, we have to save this in a local variable. So what I will do is I will say variable countries equals, I'll create a blank array first, and then I will countries equals data dot countries. Is it the capital C? Yeah, it is a capital C. Okay. All right, excellent. Let's save it, and now for each record, we have to pick the country name and pick the total confirmed cases. So, oops, let's actually keep the console log. We have to make sure we refer to it. So data dot countries. All right, let me load this. Now if I expand this, expand the first 100, I get the country name, I get the country code. There's a slug that's a uniquely identifiable property. So if I expand this, I get country, country code, date, newly confirmed, new date, new deaths, new recovered, total confirmed, and total deaths. So what we need right now is we just need the total confirmed number, right? And we need the country name, okay? So for each and every one of the objects, we have to pull this information and display it on the web page. So let's go back. Oops. All right. So I'm going to comment this out to make some space here. Close this up. All right. Great. So we're getting an array of objects, right? So what we can do is we can use the object.values. It's a traditional JavaScript function, right? So we can use object.values. I'm not using jQuery here. This is traditional JavaScript. Inside we'll pass in the countries, and for each country, I'm going to use the fat arrow function. Remember the fat arrow function. Keep the code simple. In this, let's quickly log out the country records. So I'm just gonna save this and go back and see if this works. I'm going to click the load list button, and I get each and every country, right? So this is a loop running. Okay, so that's great. Okay, so now we have to compose a table row. Okay, so I'm going to create a property here for table row. So, and this is going to be an HTML property. So I'll say variable table row. Oops. Yeah, let me quickly put this in line. All right. So the table row that we are going to be creating is HTML. I'll create a blank first and then append to this. So I'll quickly comment this out. And for table row HTML, I will append, right? So I will say table row, the table data, and I want to highlight it, so I'm going to use the strong tag right here. I'll say country dot country, because if we go back, if you go back and if you see, this is the country object, and you have country, and then we need country as well as we need the total confirmed, right? So I'll say country dot country, append, close the strong tag, and quickly wrap. Okay, all right, close the table data and open up a new table data for the total number of cases, right? So I will use a span and a bootstrap class. So I'll say class label success, and I will say country dot total confirmed. I'll say the T and C are capital. Yep. Okay, great. So the total confirmed, and I'm going to close the span and close the table data as well, and also the row. All right, great. So we have composed the table row. Great. Now we have to do is we have to append this to the table data, right? So if we select the index.html, we have to append this to the table body. I'm sorry, we have to append the table data to the table body. So the table body, we have given an ID of country list. So what we can do is, outside of this, we can say jQuery, call this by ID, it's country.
Thanks for watching. Please like and share this video.
List and add the HTML. So the HTML will be this table row HTML. Perfect. Let's see how this looks. I'm going to close this. Perfect. Perfect. So we have all the countries on the left hand side and the number of cases on the right. So we have all of 186, I think. Yep, we have from A to Z. Perfect. Perfect. Let's go back to the slides. So we got the data and we manipulated it. We used the Ajax get request to get the data, and we looped through the JavaScript objects to retrieve the data that we needed the most and displayed it on the web page. So that's perfect. So again, a quick recap of what we learned from this project. We learned how we can use Ajax call to get the information from the API server. We also learned how to get the information, process it, and present it on the web page. I'm going to recommend you to look at the other data that we're getting from the API and process it and show it to the user as well. It'll help you understand jQuery better and allow you to build a much more sophisticated dashboard. So this concludes our course for intermediate JavaScript, Ajax and jQuery. Thank you very much.